Next item on the agenda is the approval of the superintendent's evaluation. We conducted Mr. Walmsley's evaluation on November 27th, and we went back in this evening for some additional evaluation conversation, and we, based on the evaluation, we have come up with a grade, I guess, or rating. What's the correct word? Rating? Rating of highly effective for Mr. Walmsley. So at this time, I am looking for a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation as presented in our packet, which includes a highly effective rating.
A motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation as presented in the attached documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Just briefly, and just to cover myself because I was not present. As the board knows, I was unable to attend the superintendent evaluation due to a family medical issue. I wasn't present for the discussions and deliberations regarding the evaluation. I have no idea what was said in that room, and yet I have a duty to make an informed vote. I've spoken with multiple members about how the evaluation went, including Ms. Telto and Sarah. I reviewed the minutes from the closed session, and I've learned enough that I feel I can make an informed vote. So I have no doubt that my fellow board members conformed to the required procedure in evaluating Mr. Walmsley, that the process was fair, and that they did reach a consensus in regard to the overall rating. While the final result may not in all components reflect the scores for which I would have advocated had I been present, I do recognize that consensus building requires compromise and that the result may very well have been the same had I been there. So you all went through the process. I didn't, and I don't feel it's appropriate for me to disturb your consensus, so I don't disapprove, I guess. So I say that all that only because of my duty to make an informed vote and the fact that I was not there. So thank you.
Anybody else? I would just like to make a statement that once again, Brian, you are everything that you advertised yourself to be from day one. You do an amazing job for our district. Your work with the board is above anything. You make us look good every single day, and we are very pleased to be able to work with you and have you advocate for our students in our school district.
I agree. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I wanted to thank you as well. I was at the meeting, and I want to reassure you that there was a lot of discussion that did take place at the meeting, and I know that the evaluation was highly considered, and a lot of time was taken to consider each and every area of the evaluation, and I appreciate that we have a superintendent that is willing to step up to the plate when we need him to, that he's out in the community doing things that aren't necessarily in his job description, and that he's there and representing our students, our staff, and us well out there, so I appreciate that.
And that includes a great Santa suit at the ugly sweater party for Sandy's kids, that he comes in all for it.
Thank you very much for your dedication to the children of Richmond, Brian. And thank your family, too. Your dedication, I know, pulls you away from your family regularly. And so thank all of them as well for sharing you with us.
Okay, that being said, it has been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
I'm sorry, was that nay?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is approval of amendment to the superintendent's contract. When we conduct the superintendent's evaluation, part of the process is that in his contract, if he gets a satisfactory evaluation, the contract automatically extends a year. He has a 5-year contract that automatically extends a year. So that is in fact happening. Part of the process also, when conducting the evaluation, is to have a discussion about a pay increase with respect to a satisfactory, if you will, evaluation. And the Board of Education created a scale for this purpose, and there are four categories: ineffective, minimally effective, effective, and highly effective. In the areas of ineffective and minimally effective, the scale is a 0 pay increase, and I would assume for those sitting in the audience that would be obvious why that would be. To get an effective evaluation, we set the scale this year for a 0 to a 2.5% pay increase. For a highly effective evaluation, we set a scale of 0 to 5%. Discussion, this is part of the program, if you will, where we talk about that with the superintendent. And based on the highly effective evaluation that Mr. Walmsley received, the board is interested in putting out an offer of a 3% salary increase. This needs to be done in open session, so Mr. Walmsley, that is what we, based on your highly effective evaluation, that is where we are going. And we know that you have something that you want to present to us this evening regarding your thoughts on that area of the evaluation.
The document that I am passing out, if you look at it with the current original contract of 7/1/2014, I apologize, I should have put page number, but it opens up like a book. I provided the board, since there are only 2 members that have been here since I was originally hired, a summary of the contract and my evaluation so you can see. The first year of the evaluation was completed in June 22nd of 2015. There was no action taken by the board at that time. My contract did extend, as you had indicated, President Elfer, to the year 2020. At that time, I didn't request any increase to my base salary, and I didn't request any benefits. If you move ahead on the next page to the 7/1/15 to 6/30/16, my evaluation, I do want to go back to that first one. I was received an effective evaluation, and I made some notes on it because I think it's important for everybody to understand. At that time, we had an administrator in this district that did not follow district protocol and compromise. So all staff did not receive anything higher than effective. And I had asked the board at that time not to give me anything higher than effective because I felt that would be not fair as an organization to prevent other people from being highly effective. The second thing I did ask the board to consider was, at that time, we had started using student growth model, and our target was 80% of the students meeting or exceeding their student growth. At that time, as a district, we did not meet that target. I lowered the standards for all administrators and teachers so that they would meet the target. I asked the board not to lower the standard for me during our evaluation process, to hold me to that 80%, which resulted in me getting a minimally effective in the student achievement data. Okay. We move forward the next year. I received an effective rating, 7 highly effective / exceeds expectations, and 2 effective meets. Again, my contract extended 1 year. At that contract, I voluntarily asked the board to accept the contract that reduced or asked me to pay more for my vision and dental insurance. Currently, at the time, I was paying 0. I now pay 40% of that vision and dental. Part of that was I was asking my administrative staff, my secretaries, the parapro, all to do the same. It was asked of the REA. All groups have agreed to that except the REA. So I did not ask for an increase then, nor was I asking for any additional benefits. Later on, if you go to the bottom of the next page, you'll see that we opened my contract to change the evaluation timeline. At that time, I didn't ask for any adjustments. I didn't ask for an increase. In last year's evaluation, I was rated highly effective. I did not ask again for an increase, and I did not ask for any benefits. This year, based on the evaluation of what was just approved by the board, I was approved for a highly effective evaluation. My contract extends. I am not asking for a raise for my base salary from the range, but I would like the board to consider 3 additions to my contract. And that's what I'd like to go over with you. first item that I'm asking the board to consider is under the employment section of my contract, I'm requesting the board consider adding the following language. To support the superintendent with the daily and operational needs of the district agrees to minimally employ the following exempt positions: administrative assistant to the superintendent, director of business and management services, payroll and employee benefits coordinator, purchasing and accounts payable coordinator, community liaison and public relations secretary, director of curriculum and educational services, director of student support services, food service director, and transportation director. The superintendent shall have the discretion to appropriately adjust the title or duties of these said positions, and the FTE status of each of these said positions shall be mutually agreed upon based on the operational needs of the school district throughout the budget process. My reasoning or rationale behind this is these individuals, running a school district is not a one-person show. And if we're going to make significant strides in this district and moving forward, I'm asking the board to consider keeping these positions and getting them off necessarily discussion, unless we're at a situation from a financial end that we can agree to, having these conversations. If the board at any point considered eliminating the transportation director, I know nothing about transportation. We eliminated the operations director and we assumed that. If these other positions were eliminated, I strongly believe that the compromise of the services that this community expects of the district would deteriorate. Because as you add more to people's plate, things fall through the crack. That first one has no financial considerations to the district. It's already built into the budget, so there's no new cost to the district.
Can I just, before you go further,
Yep.
do we want to hear all three, or do we want to talk each one as he goes?
Let's just hear him.
Hear him
Just hear
and then
him.
go from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one is, when I got hired into this district, let me read it first and then I'll give my rationale. Upon retirement from Richmond Community Schools, the school district shall reimburse the superintendent the cost of self and spouse retirement health, vision, and dental insurance, less the state of Michigan's portion, for a period of time equal to the number of service years acquired in Richmond Community Schools at the time of retirement, rounded to the next whole number. The superintendent shall submit the appropriate documentation for reimbursement on a yearly basis. I have no intention of going anywhere else. I said that publicly. When I came here, that was my intention, was to retire from Richmond Community Schools. I pride myself on working and building relationships and overcoming those obstacles. What I'm looking for is that if we're, as a committed group, I mean, we're here 5 years at least on the current contract. I've got many more years till I retire. So what I'm looking for is if I do end my career in Richmond and not seek another employment, this would be the only time that the district would have to pay. If an opportunity presented itself, my family had to relocate due to my wife's company, this wouldn't cost the district anything if I left, other than retiring from the district. What it positions you is my intent to finish my tenure here in Richmond, my commitment to Richmond Community Schools and the students and staff. You'll see a box there. Currently, the Office of Retirement Services publishes these rates every year. So currently, that would be the rate that if I were to retire would have been the cost for the district. Some people may consider this a legacy cost. It's no different than what we currently offer 3 of our administrators, as well as those that have taken the buyout previously, that you leave the district and we're going to pay you something to leave. Currently, the 3 administrators and 1 currently receiving, so 4 administrators, receive up to 45% of their base salary spread out over 5 years. That option is not available to all administrators and currently is not offered to me. What I'm looking at it, when you look at that rate of pay that I gave you, forgive me, I don't know what I can't remember what the number you gave. 3%?
3%.
On the sheet I gave you, 3% built into a budget every year would be, with FICA and retirement built into, another roughly $5,000 that we'd have to build into the cost. This is a gamble on both of our sides that I'm going to retire from Richmond, and it's a gamble that if I do retire, that the board would have a cost for every year that I'm in the district. And the last thing I'm asking for consideration would be at the end of the contract to add the following paragraph. Again, this has no cost. In addition to directing that all complaints, criticisms, and suggestions concerning the district or any of its personnel to the superintendent is set forth. That's the previous paragraph. The board agrees that it shall work with the superintendent in the spirit of cooperation and teamwork, and shall provide the superintendent with periodic opportunities to discuss board-superintendent relationship. Whenever it is deemed desirable by either a majority of the board or by the superintendent, an outside advisor will be mutually selected by the board and superintendent and shall be paid for by the school district to facilitate discussion of the relationship of the board and the superintendent in the advancement of the best interest of this district. My rationale behind this is over the next 5 years, there's a potential that this board could switch dramatically through elections. A 6-year commitment is a long time to commit as a board member. And so my intent here is I want to maintain a very good relationship with the board. I want to maintain that providing you with the guidance that I feel I've been providing you. And at any point during that time that I or the board feel we need to work on that relationship, that it's in the contract that we do. So the proposal in front of you, I'm requesting no pay increase. Keep my base salary that you provided me since July 1st, 2014. No changes to my insurance, but to consider these 3 options as part of my amendments to my contract.
Brian, are you asking for us to consider all 3 of these as a group? All 3 considerations, or each one
Yes.
individually?
I would like to forego any raises with these 3, is what I would like.
So for number 1, the idea being keeping all of those, but when you're talking about the FTE status, that could be through the budget process, that all of these may be what we have, but they may not be at a full-time. That would be, right, that's what that means?
Correct.
That's what that's saying?
It may be putting 2 part-times together. Obviously, certification requirement would be needed, but maintaining that these are key positions that I believe strongly that if we're going to move this organization forward, we need to have these positions.
But this says full-time status of each said position.
So FTE, so for instance, if the transportation director is currently full-time, we share it with New Haven and Richmond. If that agreement ever went away, that's part of the budget process. I would be coming to you saying, I don't believe, I might, depending, maybe our enrollment's growing and we need the need, but maybe let's go down there, a full-time transportation, but we need a transportation. I gotta have someone overseeing transportation. So through the budget process, we look at enrollment, we look at if the board, I think the only exception to that would be if the board chooses to eliminate transportation completely and we're getting out of the business. Then you wouldn't, that would be through the budget process. Not that we're doing, so please do not quote that in the newspaper. But that would be through that budget process that we both would agree, yeah.
Does that include any kind of combination? Like keeping all of these, but maybe 2 positions would be 1 person? Like if they were, like, I'm just going to throw out half-time food service, half-time transportation. We did that many years ago, but does it include that kind of conversation
I would,
as well?
to me, that's what we need to look at, is what's in the needs of the organization.
Does that fall under the language of mutually agreed upon based on the operational needs of the school district through the budget process?
So what I would look at that as saying, when we go through the budget process, I'm going to bring you, here's my recommendation.
Right.
As we go through and talk about it, the other creative ways that we can do this is going to come up.
Right.
I don't necessarily mean it's an end-all and be-all. That's not what my intent is, but there's a commitment that we need these key positions. The first one, I can go through each one if you want, but the first one goes without saying from the perspective of pupil accounting.
Right.
I would be honest with you, if you want to get rid of a superintendent, eliminate your pupil accounting person, you're not going to have any superintendent.
My question, I was just, as I'm looking at that, all of those jobs, are very important to the district. But if that's what you're thinking that you need to have, but if you're saying falling into where you have that position, but it could be a half-time, a three-quarter time, or two positions shared, I don't know that I look at that that's that big of a deal, but, because it's all gonna shake out when you're doing the budget every year anyways, right?
It's gonna come, what is our FTE? Or what is our budgeted, projected FTE that we're building a budget on? What's the state giving us? Where I see this potentially, the board's gonna have to make some decisions, which we know going ahead, is if these are vital positions to run in the district or operate, are there other positions that are not getting us the results that we need, but yet we're still investing in those positions?
It just scares me to commit to something that we don't know. Like to say that we need all these people. I know at one point your vision was to have the director of curriculum be moved and shifted to the administrators of each building. That was the long-term goal. And I know you've always said, like, we're not there yet. But we'll get there.
So if I assume that was where we were going,
Yeah.
part of that vision was to have an operations person, someone overseeing the opening and closing buildings, the maintenance and operations,
Yeah.
the mechanic. We don't have that now, and we're
But
spread
that
out
would be,
over this.
wouldn't that position be cheaper than a director of curriculum though?
Yeah, I'm gonna say you get what you pay for on all these positions.
Mhm.
And we spent a lot of posting, interviewing for food service director.
Mhm.
There's people who just turned us down because we're not even in the ballpark of what they rank.
Yeah.
We're gonna have that, and there's a lot of speculation you can do on current staffing.
Yeah.
When they leave, we look at, do we need to replace that position?
Well, and I guess it scares me to like have it in a contract that we have to have all of these positions employed. And once we agree to this, we have no say then, right? We are not able to cut any of
Well,
these
it's mutually
positions.
agreed through the budget, so we're gonna have a conversation that says if,
Okay.
Based on
the operational needs. If we're downsizing, the question's gonna be, do you still need the same number of administrators? If our number's decreasing, the question's gonna be, do you still need the same number of media specialists? Do you still need the same number of secretaries? If the enrollment is decreasing.
And do you
The
need these
challenge with
positions
this, I'm
full-time?
gonna be honest, the challenge with it, regardless of our size of our district, you still got the grants that gotta be submitted to the state.
Right.
You got all the finances that have to be reported, all the people, regardless of the size of your district.
Sure, yeah.
That's my rationale behind it.
So when it says, so I guess I'm confused then. When it says, like, mutually agreed upon, this is kind of saying we need to have these positions, but you're saying if we agree upon it, we don't technically have to keep all these positions.
If we're both in agreement to the position, yes.
But by
That
you
is
saying
a
you want
sticky
these,
one.
obviously you might not
I
be in
feel
agreement.
strongly
Yeah,
today.
right.
Strongly today, and I don't mean to cut this side off, I apologize. I feel strongly today that the successes that this district has had
Mhm.
has been because we've invested in certain structures to change our model.
Yeah.
The pupil out, the community liaison, that first impression parents get gives them a very positive impression before they even step foot in our district.
Mhm.
That taking them from there and giving them to the schools to kind of make it now personalized, wouldn't be there.
Right.
It's a liaison that in that particular position, deals with helping families fill out online applications, rather than just saying, here's the link, sitting down with the computer in the office and filling out the lunch application. Yeah, getting them resources to community events. I think that has changed the culture of this building. We were expecting it to happen as an organization, and it was happening in pocket, but it wasn't a systemic approach.
And I agree, they're all important positions. I just think it ties us in a certain way, but.
And I kind of echoing off what Sarah said about tying us, I have, I mean, you've had 4 evaluations, Brian. It's been effective, highly effective, which added a year under contract each time. So we're essentially, if we agree to these three considerations, being bound for a contract without end, that's potentially without end. I mean, for decades into the future, we could be bound by
I
these
would
three
say there is an
considerations.
end if I'm not doing the job you hired me to do. You as a 7 board member have every right to not give me an effective evaluation.
Right.
The only thing I've ever asked for is that if I'm doing something that either is different from what the board is asking, or different, or in, not in alignment with what the board's asking, then let me know, give me a chance to correct it.
And that's fine, Brian, but you being an effective or highly effective administrator doesn't mean that 30 years from now we're going to need a director of curriculum.
I think the language written in what he's written says that there's flexibility, that we have that ability in the budget process.
It says
to-
mutually agreed upon, though, meaning that we both, the board and the superintendent agree, right?
Can I put the elephant in the room? During teacher negotiation, what was the position that they spoke at the podium that was the least effective in this district? The director of curriculum. I'll be willing to pull up right now if you want to go to IDEX and show, since we've had a director of curriculum and we have focused instruction, we have raised our score. Is he the one that is actually in the classroom doing it? No. But he's getting the materials, pulling the groups together, and for staff members to say, and this is where I find, and I bit my lip, offensive, cut the position because that gives us our step. I have a problem with that.
I say curriculum director because, as
Correct,
previously
correct.
mentioned, I could have said any one of those 9.
You're absolutely right.
positions.
You're absolutely right.
So I'm not singling out the curriculum director, but I'm
But-
saying
but-
that I just don't fundamentally like the idea of being bound for decades into any contractual terms that we don't.
I guess my question would be, if it is flexible, then why put it in here? If it's gonna be mutually agreed upon every budget anyway, what is the importance of this to you if every year it's up for negotiation anyway?
Because in the current budget process, at any one time, and it happened 2 years ago with the community liaison position, it was cut, and then the 11th hour was wanted to be put back, and all the documents had to be.
Yeah.
It's having a conversation with the board, saying what do we value in this organization to support what we want to have happen here. You've got $1 million. We have $1 million being sold in May for technology. To not have someone who oversees the implementation of that, other than myself, I believe is not responsible.
Right.
So essentially, you're saying this is the support that you need to be able to do the work that you do.
That's what
That's what you're saying,
That's what I'm
is
saying.
that this is the team that you need to be able to do the work that you do.
You know,
So then if we have to cut, I don't mean to cut you off, go ahead.
Yeah, but-
If we had to cut, like, where else do you cut from? If this is what you need to get the job done, I can support that. I mean, you'd know the job, you do it day to day. But where does that leave us? I mean, what does that leave us with? You can't cut teachers, you need them in the class. You can't really cut supplies, that's nothing. We're committed now to all these, where else do you cut? If we have to cut?
We can, I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to be twisted out for the listening audience in here, so I'm not implying that I'm going to bring you a budget, but you can cut teachers. We have class sizes that are low.
Oh, I don't like that.
You can cut secretarial staff.
Yeah.
You can cut media parapros. We are offering services. You can cut Schedule Bs,
Yep.
academic or scholastics. Yet,
Sports
But that takes away from the kids
programs,
then,
you
right?
could
That
cut
would be cutting, I mean, Schedule Bs.
Transportation, you could cut sporting programs, you could cut,
Oh,
I
so you don't
mean,
want
I don't
any of
want
that.
to cut those things.
Right, right.
That's not what I would be looking to cut, but
Yeah.
there are areas
just
that are
limits us.
non-essentials.
Yeah.
But it limits, but you're talking about in here that these are vital positions. But they could be vital positions that aren't full-time. That could be a half-time, made half-time based on
Well,
what's happening in,
That's why I
we
had
know.
difficulty with the FTE status wording.
Right. But we know part-time
need-
positions barely, they don't
Where
get filled a lot.
It
right?
says, adjust the title and duties of said positions and the FTE status of each said position. That's what it says here.
yeah, and that's talking about whether they're go to
Full-time.
half-time or
Time.
full-time.
So it could be I guess that's why I was asking that, is that each of those positions is full-time?
Currently, they're all full-time
They are.
except the community liaison and public relations secretary. That position. I
What
believe,
does
is
this,
5
the
full-time.
FTE status of each said position?
That's Brian's way of saying
Full-time equivalent.
full-time, half-time. He calls it FTE.
FTE is what
I
we're
understand
for.
that, but when it says each said position,
So
it
if-
makes it
if you
appear to
wanted
me
to-
that each said position that's in here, that each position is full-time.
Oh, okay, no, all right, I get it.
Right.
They are what they are right now, but I read that, that's why I said, so you need all of these, so you need a food service and transportation, you need somebody to lead those. That could be one person who is a food service director and a transportation director.
I
They're
understand
half
what
and
you're
half.
saying, but when I read it, I'm reading it as each said position is full-time status.
So could you reword it is what you're saying? Is that what you're maybe asking for?
I don't know, maybe I'm just overreading it.
But rewrite it to say what?
That the combination of each said position is full-time status, or maybe I'm reading it inaccurately, but to
No, I
me,
just-
it states that each said position is a full-time position.
I get.
I-
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we're still on this, it's fine. I just wanted to comment that I'm concerned about, I mean, the budget is one of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Education. And I'm concerned about limiting the ability of future boards to do their job by being bound to something like this. I mean, I think that every elected board should be able to react to conditions as they exist at the time in which that person serves. I don't know what we should concern ourselves with limiting the ability of future boards to do their job.
And
And I don't-
I would look at it as saying, these are, regardless of what district you're in, what board's sitting here, these positions oversee a vital area in this district. From feeding our kids, to transporting our kids, to special needs populations, to the budget, payroll and benefits, purchasing, the curriculum, the pupil account. Every single one of these positions is a vital position that in some fashion, in every district you have.
And if those positions are vital, then I trust the member who sits here after me to make that decision.
Every one of our contracts hold our hands in some way. Every single one of our contracts do. Even the state of Michigan holds our how we're gonna teach our students and what kind of credits they're going to take.
Right. But this discussion is whether to further bind us. And I'm just saying, I don't know if it's a great idea.
For me, it seems like everyone's hung up on this mutually agreed upon language. And in all of my dealings with Brian, I don't think he's ever brought anything to us that wasn't in the best interest of the district. So in this language, I trust in Brian that if we didn't need an accounts payable coordinator and the budget process came along, that would be his recommendation and we would mutually agree upon.
And
So-
I think, I recall 2 years ago, that's sort of what happened with that liaison person, was that he really didn't, that wasn't his first, like, intuition to say, hey, scrub this person. But if that's what the board was agreeing on and that's where we were headed, that's where we were headed.
I think if you looked at the minutes of that one, I think my comment was, if you're asking me to choose programs for kids over a service that I would have, I
I
choose programs
recall
for
the
kids.
same.
Cut the position.
But now, would you change that?
Pardon?
Would you change that decision now?
I would be reevaluating every position in the district. Because if that, and I'll just go back to this, if that position is eliminated, that duty has to fall somewhere.
Exactly, yeah, it has to. Well, I guess that's why I just, to me, it's, if it does seem still so flexible, I guess the importance of it being in the contract seems irrelevant because it's still gonna be up for debate every budget. I guess I'm just wondering the relevance of it.
Maybe Brian just wants commitment from his boss to say,
Sure.
these positions
Our value.
are valuable.
Yep.
I think
Well, I
that's
think we
probably
all-
what
I think
the
we all know
statement
that.
he's looking for from us.
Well, I know, I would like to think we all sit here and know that these are valuable positions, at least I do. I would never say they weren't.
I'm good with it.
Can we talk about any of the other items?
Yeah.
Well, no, let's,
You want to stick with this one?
no, I just want to say, I mean, do we have a majority that don't have a problem with it? Because otherwise, we can sit here talking about it, and if we don't have a majority, then that's not
I don't have a
something.
problem with it.
I don't have a problem with that.
I do
I
have
don't
an
have a
issue
problem
with it.
with
Unfortunately, just the being contractually bound to something like this, I have big concerns. But I do give you credit, Brian, for creative.
I didn't hear what you said, Dave.
He says he
I said I don't have a
doesn't
problem with it.
I don't have a problem with
I don't like being bound to it, especially if it's flexible. I just don't see the relevance.
I agree that that these are vital positions, but.
Yeah,
as
I do
said,
too, but I think it does tie our hands to something that we may or may not be able to sustain at some point.
What would make it more palatable?
I
What-
don't know.
it.
I would,
Yeah.
I
So
would
can
need
I
to
ask
mull
this
it over,
question?
I think.
Whatever board's sitting up here, that board says, Brian, we believe that you have the qualifications to be transportation director.
Mhm.
As a board, you ultimately approve the budget.
Yes.
You ultimately said. And if you approve to, or you accept to eliminate that, are you not setting me up for failure? By eliminating one of these positions that there's not a person in the organization that can do?
Yes.
So my position on it is, as I said, and somewhat as what Trey says, a commitment is each one of these positions, if you're in the district in Marquette or you're in district in Detroit, these are vital positions to an organization. You don't have to have, and I'm not cutting it, you don't have to have deans of students at every building. Nothing that says it.
Mhm.
I would say, I'd argue it's a vital position.
Yeah.
You don't have to have counselors. You don't have to have two secretaries at every building. You could reduce those secretary hours to the exact hours of the school day. You could stagger the secretary. And again, I'm not pitting one against the other because that's not what I look at when I do the budget, but I believe these are vital positions that I'm just asking the commitment that we're going to support these vital positions.
Okay. I think.
That's my.
Okay, I think we're good. I think number one is a yes, right? Okay. Number two. So I'll just sort out first. So basically, this is a severance package. You're not looking, you don't want any kind of raise, anything. It's just you want something at the end, and you would have to retire. You couldn't just go leave and go work somewhere else. If you go and work somewhere else,
It's void.
it's void. If you start all of a sudden for some miraculous, amazing thing doing a terrible job and you're evaluated out, nothing.
It's void.
How many total years are you expecting to be with the district?
So my wife will agree to have me home. I'm just kidding.
Can we
I
call her
am,
in?
I realistically, in my life plan, have 7 more years with the district. My daughter's in 10th grade, 2 more years,
Good for you.
4 years of college.
As everybody
and a year
says.
of
That's all I
life.
can say.
And you've been here how many?
This will be my 4th year, so you could look at anywhere from 10 to 11 years.
So in
this would be
essence-
retroactive?
So in essence, what it would be is, well, let's assume I've worked here for 10 years. When I retire, I pay my insurance, I turn the district a receipt, you don't pay FICA in retirement on it, it's the insurance cost that year for the next 10 years. And that's the amount that you would have.
Does that change? I mean, is that a fixed amount that will never go up?
No.
Insurance adjusts.
Okay, so as of today, that's
As
what it
of
would be.
today, that's what-
But we don't
that's
know
what-
what that would look like 10
I
years from
can't
now,
speak to
and then
that.
10 years beyond that.
You know, and I'll put it on the record because it's a public document. I took a $40,000 pay cut to come to Richmond Community Schools. So over life of 10 years, that's $400,000 of lost revenue for my personal family to come here. It's more about the environment and the well-being, why I chose to come here. So for me, and I'll be honest with you, I'm probably an open book. I know what my retirement's gonna be. I'm never gonna make that money again in this district as a superintendent, what I made in Warren. So I know what my fixed retirement's gonna be.
I'm good with it.
To give you
It
a
blows
pers-
my mind, and just wait, it blows my mind because you're rolling the dice with this, in my opinion, as opposed to you can get a raise right now, you possibly could get a raise next year, you've not asked for one every single year, even though we've talked about it. So you're rolling the dice with this because you have to retire. And if we look at what we're paying out right now with, was it $45,000?
It's $45,000 from the administrator that left. Potentially, it's another $45,000 coming up. That's 90, and we have 2 more administrators, so there's another $180,000 in severance package that the 4 administrators that I know of would have gotten.
And even if you take if it's 11 years, and let's say that goes up to $4,000, you're still looking at less than what we're already paying. I don't have any problem.
Correct.
with
If you
that.
took that and just used the word 4,000, and you multiply it by 10 years, there's 40,000. That's still less than what the current contract pays out for administrators
Right.
that we're obligated to pay.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm good.
Good.
Good, Dave? Tracy?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I have one question.
Mhm.
So, should this go through, or some mutually agreed upon, whatever goes through, and you forego a raise, how many years are you foregoing a raise for? If this goes through as is, you're saying, I don't want the raise, is that good for this year, or are you saying, okay, if all this goes through, I'm not gonna ask for a raise for the next 4 years, or?
I don't know what my position is going to be next year.
Yeah, I
or
don't
year.
know that you can say that.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, we're committing to something for 10, 11 years post. That doesn't anything stop Brian from coming back next year and saying, well, okay, now this year I want the
But we would
3%
still-
or
But it
not.
still has to
And
be,
it-
it still
and it
has to be
doesn't
agreed
come
upon.
for us to say no.
I know,
We-
I just, in my head, I didn't know if he had a number to say, I'm asking for these knowing that they are long-term commitments of a cost. I'm committing to not ask for a raise for however, I just didn't, he's got a vision. Sometimes he thinks of these things ahead of time. I thought maybe he would know.
This one, you're giving me too much credit, I haven't. More of a, I'll be honest with you, it was looking, this particular one was, when I can, in my life plan, retire.
Yeah,
I got many years ahead of me before I hit Social Security.
right. Okay.
Yeah, if you're going in 7 years, yes,
I'm not.
a long time.
I guess in my head, when we're talking about like a 3%, it was roughly 5,000. This projected yearly cost is only, right now 36, we even call it 4. So in my head, that's a wash, right? So what we would have been paying him in that 3% raise, we're just kind of giving him at the end to pay for retirement. And in my mind, I'm good with
Correct, but
that.
remember, that 3% raise that you are offering
Well, it's only 10.
is in the budget every year
Exactly.
going forward.
Right.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So in this year's budget,
Yes,
you have my base salary, and if we were to agree on that 3%, you're gonna increase this budget by 3%.
yeah.
That increase is gonna carry over because you're continuing that base salary increase for the future years.
So,
Yeah, no, that
That
your
becomes-
salary would
that
go up.
becomes a
Yeah,
new pay
absolutely,
scale.
yes,
So in-
absolutely. So that's why I'm okay with this. I just didn't know if like next year it was gonna be like, and now I want this also. So I didn't know if
And
you
as
had an
always is,
idea.
the board can say no.
Right,
From that perspective, it's not a, the only thing that is an automatic is the year based on the evaluation.
Right.
That is the only thing that's an automatic, in addition to what's currently written.
okay.
Brian?
I mean, I understand everyone else is in favor of it. We kind of started talking about a 3% raise, and now we're committing ourselves to over $40,000 in insurance benefits based on this year's yearly cost. I guess if the group is on board with it, I won't oppose it, but it just bears pointing out, I think.
It's gonna be 30 grand in salary over the next 10 years.
Right.
or more than that.
Okay. Number 3.
Say that again, Kyle? I'm sorry.
I said it would be more than 30 grand in salary over the next 10 years because it would be built into the budget.
Correct.
It's a big push.
Right.
Okay, number 3.
I didn't quite understand this one. Can you help me understand it, Brian, a little bit better? Like, you're thinking you want good relationships,
Well-
which I totally get.
The existing contract, the paragraph before reads, "The board individually and collectively shall refer promptly and all criticism, complaints, suggestions, call to the attention of the superintendent for study and recommendation if an individual board member deems referral to be warranted based on the nature of the complaint criticism." So what I'm asking is, I want to keep that language. If there's something brought to your attention that should be addressed, that it's brought to my attention so I can address it. In addition, if there, based on our relationship, if there seems to be on either end that it's going south in a negative way, that either party, either the action of the board or the superintendent, can say, let's get someone in there to try to repair that relationship. It's much like what we have done, whether it's a board relationship or board superintendent. You know, again, I'm looking at this and it's a long-term structural that this board could look very different in 2 years, it could look
Sure.
very different in 4 years. And my intent is, I want to make sure we build the relationship and work together. It's almost like when a marriage starts having a rocky situation,
You're
we go see a counselor.
Preemptively paying for counseling. You're gonna have to put that in the vows. When people go to counseling.
That's what I'm looking at.
That's funny. Okay. How much does that cost when we have an advisor? Like, what is that?
It could be someone from the ISD, which could be free. It could be the MASB. It's typically, I would say a good ballpark is $1,000 to $1,500 for an event.
I was going to say 1,500.
Okay.
And when we've done them before.
Does it, I mean,
years.
what about like our workshops? I mean, we usually, I mean, is that anything this
Well,
stuff
we
can
got
be
that one
tackled under?
was
Could be.
paid for, but.
Right.
It could be.
Because I'm just wondering, some of this could be resolved without hiring somebody though,
That would be
right?
my hope, is that
Okay,
we could
okay.
then, I could say, you know something, whoever the board president is, I believe we've got some tension here that we need to address. Can we have a
We can
workshop to
try
address
first.
it?
Okay.
And see if
Oh,
we
you're
can.
saying when we do a workshop.
Yeah, I thought,
that's
don't
what
we
she's
kind of like
saying.
work
Oh, I
on things?
misunderstood.
I just
We
didn't
do.
know if there'd be the option of trying to resolve it internally first, so that we're not just outputting that money. But
I
then
would
if
think
it's
so.
not, just make sure that that's,
I think so, because
I
I
think
think
that's
that's
the
where,
first sentence.
whenever it is
Okay.
deemed desirable by either a majority, an outside advisor, so I would think that's where that would come
The
into play.
first set of
We've
periodic
done-
opportunity to discuss is what, let's figure out this together.
Right.
Before we bring in, we don't air our dirty laundry till we try to fix our dirty laundry.
right.
Right.
Okay, I'm good with that one, I don't mind that one.
I'm good with it.
I'm sorry, the sentence before that, which says, "The board agrees that it shall work with the superintendent's spirit of cooperation, teamwork, and that shall provide the superintendent with periodic opportunities to discuss board superintendent relationships whenever it is deemed desirable by either a majority of the board or by the superintendent." What would be an example of that?
I would look at it as I'm sorry, Jacob. I would look at it saying, okay, we are working, going through, and I'm sensing there's tension among us as a group. I request an opportunity to sit down and let's talk that through. If we do that and it's still not working, then we go to the next level and try to get an outside person to come and help. That's the way I look at that language.
And that
Well, that
was
was
2
my intent.
sentences, Dave.
That was my intent.
So it's deemed desirable by either the majority of the board or by you?
Correct, that would be,
An outside advisor will be,
By either a majority, yeah.
or by the superintendent.
Or by the superintendent.
and the only reason why it's written that way from my angle is that no one person on the board can kind of direct that we need to happen, but if the majority of the board feels we got an issue, then let's figure out resolving it.
I'm fine with that one.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Chris?
Yeah.
Kyle?
Thumbs up.
Fine.
You said okay, didn't you? Right, okay. Okay. Well, that being said, the resolution that we have, the attached documentation will be,
But so now I have a question.
Hold
If,
on.
if I don't agree with one of those, would I mean, I would technically have to vote no for all of it?
if you, these three things, we
Are
have a
one
majority that
package.
are one package.
Right, but then, so then I may just be the
No,
minority,
yeah,
but
you
if
could-
I don't just, I mean, like, because I'm fine with some of them, but that first one is, I'm struggling with, I'll be honest. So then I would just vote no for the whole thing?
If that's what you want to do.
Okay.
I
I
mean,
just want to make, we're not
we have-
sectioning it into pieces. I
No,
just
because
don't
we
want
have
to
a
give
majority
the
of
wrong
the board that
impression.
says these things are good. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is what Brian's counter proposal, we would be going
Right.
with this. If you feel you're not comfortable with some of it, you
With a
can.
piece. I just didn't want it to be
Absolutely.
portrayed as I don't agree with all of it, because that's
Well,
not the
what
case.
you can do is
I
when
just
the-
have a section.
When the person makes the motion, if you're going to choose to vote no, you would always have the ability to say, I have a, while I don't necessarily disagree with all of it, I have a little problem with that. For that reason, I'm voting no,
Okay.
whatever
Okay.
you want to do.
Yes.
So the attached documentation will be this document, and I will give that to Brian or Terry or whoever, so that that's what's attached to it. Okay? So that being said,
I motion to approve the amendment to the superintendent's contract as presented in the attached documentation.
Support.
it's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Now I say, or no?
Now would be the time.
Okay, yes. So as in discussion, I do only have a problem with this consideration, number one. I think it ties us into a corner. Did not disagree that these are all very important positions. If it's flexible, I guess I just am questioning the relevance of having it in a contract, because it's a lot harder to get something out of a contract once it's in a contract, and I feel like it ties us and puts us in a place. So the rest of it I'm good with, but that one I do struggle with.
And I don't want to be redundant. I more or less agree with Sarah, though. Just the first one, just being tied in for that length of time, when I think we all can, any reasonable person on a school board can agree that these are vital positions. And I think it kind of goes without saying.
Anybody else? Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No, nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Brian.